This happened to my dad back in the late 90s when I was just a kid. He doesn't like talking about it, but once, when I was old enough, he told me the whole thing. So my dad was a truck driver at the time. He'd been driving long hauls for years, so he was used to long nights on the road crossing different states. This one night, he was headed through some back roads in the Midwest on his way to deliver a shipment in Nebraska. It was late, around 1 or 2 in the morning, and he was cutting through some rural area with nothing around for miles. Dad said he always preferred driving through the night because it was quieter, less traffic. After hours of driving with nothing but his own thoughts and the hum of the truck, he noticed someone walking along the side of the road up ahead. It was someone clearly looking to hitchhike. Now normally, my dad didn't pick up hitchhikers, especially not in the middle of nowhere at that time of night. But something about this guy made him curious. Dad said it was freezing that night, and the guy didn't even have gloves on. His hands were by his side, and he was just staring down the road like he had nowhere to go. Against his better judgment, Dad pulled over. Maybe he felt bad for the guy, or maybe the isolation of the road got to him. But he stopped. The man walked up to the truck, and Dad leaned out of the window to ask where he was headed. The guy barely said anything, just muttered something about needing to get to the next town. His voice was low and rough, like he hadn't spoken in days, and the way Dad tells it, something about the guy immediately made him uncomfortable. He wasn't dirty or anything, just had a strange vibe. His face was pale, almost sickly, and his eyes looked wide and bloodshot. But again, Dad figured maybe he was just tired, so he told the guy to hop in. For the first half hour or so, they drove in silence. The guy didn't talk much, just stared out the window. Dad tried making small talk, asking where he was from, where he was going, but the guy only gave short, vague answers. After a while, Dad stopped trying, and they drove in awkward silence. But things slowly started getting weird. Dad noticed the guy wasn't sitting still. He was fidgeting, shifting in his seat, like he couldn't get comfortable. Then he started mumbling to himself, really low, under his breath. At first, Dad thought maybe the guy was just talking to himself, but then he realized the guy was saying the same thing over and over, but couldn't quite understand it. At this point, Dad was getting seriously freaked out. He glanced over and saw the guy wasn't looking out the window anymore. He was staring straight ahead, his lips barely moving as he kept whispering that strange, muffled phrase. Dad was done with this guy's strange behavior. He decided that as soon as they hit the next town, he was dropping this guy off. No more conversation, just get him out of the truck and keep driving. But as they kept going, the guy started mumbling louder. The words were clearer now, but Dad couldn't understand all of it. Something about "they're coming" and "you can't escape." Dad slammed on the brakes, nearly sending them both through the windshield. He had reached his breaking point. He told the guy to get out of the truck, yelling at him, but the guy didn't move at first. He just stared at Dad, his grin never fading. Then, slowly, almost mechanically, he opened the door, stepped out onto the side of the road, and just stood there, staring at the truck as Dad pulled away. My dad drove as fast as he could, watching the rearview mirror the whole time. The guy didn't move. He just stood there in the middle of the road, his wide, bloodshot eyes locked on the truck until he was nothing but a speck in the distance. Dad never picked up another hitchhiker after that, and to this day, he still won't drive that route again. He says whoever that was had a very evil and weird presence about them. And sometimes late at night, when he's on an empty road, he swears he still feels like someone is watching him.